Thirdly, one of the tools, one of the specific reasons that God gives miracles in the advance of his kingdom, in the advance of the gospel, is to strike fear and astonishment. To strike fear and astonishment into people. And this happens enough times that I think it merits its own sub-point. That as we remember, the book of Acts, the Great Commission, is our conquest for Christ. And we remember back to the book of Joshua, as we did 2 weeks ago, and remember that even in Joshua's time, the miraculous occurred. And it was always occurring to advance the mission, but one of the ways that it happened, one of the effects that it had was that other people were fearful and astonished at what they heard. For Joshua, the Jordan dried up and they walked on over. They were receiving manna from heaven still, and until a certain point of time, they received. Of course, he had the angelic visitation. That was one of the miracles. There was others. The falling of Jericho at the blow of the trumpets. The sun itself stood still for a day so that they might win their battle. God was doing miracles through Joshua's time, and it was striking fear into the heart of the people. Rahab in Jericho says, "We've heard, we tremble. There's not a man in this town that doesn't have a heart like melted wax within him at the news of your God." And so it is also in the book of Acts. We read in chapter 5, verse 12 to 14, after Ananias and Sapphira had been struck dead for their lies in the church. He says, "Now many signs and wonders were regularly done among the people by the hands of the apostles, and they were all together in Solomon's portico. None of the rest dared join them, but the people held them in high esteem. And more than ever, believers were added to the Lord, multitudes of both men and women." So which is it, Luke? What's the correct divinely inspired account? Did no one dare join them because of the miracles and the dead Christians that just got carried out in body bags? Or did they grow at a rate that had not yet been seen in the book of Acts? Friends, it was both. How God uses fear and astonishment to, in fact, drive forward the purposes of his gospel. Chapter 2, verse 43, we saw this in our last sermon. "Awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles." Acts chapter 2, verse 9 and 10. It says that, "And all the people saw him," Acts chapter 3, which we've just read about the lame man. "All the people saw him walking and praising God and recognized him as the one who sat at the gate beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him." God uses miracles to strike fear into people that they are meeting with the holy God. I think of Spurgeon's life. Even Spurgeon, the great Calvinistic, somewhat cessationist preacher of the 1800s, a sensible time, but a gospel preacher above everything else. And at times, as he's preaching to the 10, the 15, the 20,000s in front of him, he was struck that there's somebody in the room right now who kept their shoe store open last Sabbath and made 6 pence profit. You're selling your soul on the Lord's day for 6 pence. And he went on with his sermon. Months later came the report that a man sitting there that day was directly described by his moment. He went home, he never met Spurgeon. He went home, he repented of the Lord. He shut his shop on Sundays, he was there in the church. Another time as he's preaching, he says, "And you know what? There's a servant girl, and in your pocket you've got 2 white gloves that belong to your mate, to the person you're serving. You ought to return them, for theft is a sin punishable by wrath of God." And then he kept on preaching. And I'm sure the 15,999 people there that didn't get described are thinking, Spurgeon's gout's getting to him. Had maybe one too many Sabbath pipes and whiskies, as was his custom. But the one of the 16,000, the young girl, converted on the spot because he described her sin, just as 1 Corinthians 14 tells us. That when the sin is told, the heart is broken open, they fall to their knees and say, "Surely God is in this place." But you know what Spurgeon didn't do? He didn't put pause on the gospel preaching and go, "Can I just get a confirmation of that? Can I just see your hand? Anybody feel like you've got 2 white gloves in your pocket? Can I see? Because I just want everybody here to know that I was right." No, nothing of that kind. And he would say dozens of times in his preaching, such events occurred. Why? Because God sought through a gospel preacher to impress his presence on the people of God.